Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital has Drew Kane allowing Willow Tate still wants to be with him. But no, she wants nothing to do with Drew because Willow blames him for losing her kitties. She's only talking to him in case he can ever help her get them back and avoid captivity. But soon enough, Willow is going to have to tell Drew she's no way ever getting back together with him, and also effects are going to explode. General Hospital Drew moves on after Willow, we know, ultimately to anticipate huge fallout when Willow dumps Drew formally and for all. After Willow's done with him, of course, Drew will ultimately pursue someone new, or someone new might pursue him, or it could be in partner. We'll see. We're going to talk about some romantic possibilities for Drew after Willow bails on him. Let's talk about what unlucky lady in Port Charles might wind up laden with Dreyfus. So, formerly Willow eventually kicks Drew to the check. He may take just a nanosecond to master his injuries, and also we know obviously he'll move on. I mean, he's insane, he's immoral, and he has crazy eyes, but Drew is hot, he has a great body, and he's rich. So, notoriety will take him on. Let's talk about who. Could Drew and Carly rekindle their scorching love on GH? First, let's talk about whether he'll hit up the most doubtful of his spouses to revitalize with him, and that would be Carly Corinthos Spencer. Back in 2022, Drew and Carly were absolutely scorching, and their honey may reignite after Drew finds out Willow actually loathes him and has no intentions of reuniting with him. And of course, Carly despises Drew right now. But formerly Willow dumps Drew on his butt, he may drop his vendetta against Michael Corinthos, and that could soften Carly towards Drew. Plus, he did go to captivity, so Carly would have to go. So Drew's got that going for him. I mean, Carly's gotten back with other spouses who did terrible effects to her, so it's not unknown. I suppose Drew and Carly make sense in a way because they do have a participated history with ties to Jocelyn Jacks and Scout Kane, and their passion was explosive. What's funny is some GH observers actually suppose a reunion between Carly and Drew is ineluctable. I don't feel that way, but we know Carly getting back with Drew would rankle lots of people, especially Sonny Corinthos, Jason Morgan, and Michael. So Carly would face counter-reaction from those closest to her. A spicy and chaotic rebound. Drew and Nina's undetermined pressure each right. There's also Nina Reeves to consider, another kind of partner. I mean, Drew and Nina would be a racy and chaotic answer. Drew and Nina have lots of undetermined sexual pressure. Plus, they're both rejects. Plus, it would be super creepy for him to nearly marry her son and also go back to her. And, you know, that could be really intriguing. Nina getting back with Drew would be a huge adulatory mess, and suckers would either love it or love to detest it. And if Willow didn't formerly detest Nina, she absolutely would despise her if she started shagging Drew again, or worse yet, developed a real relationship with him, which they didn't have ahead. I suspect Willow might covenant to destroy both of them and get the ultimate double vengeance. On the outside, they might actually be good co-parents for Scout because Nina loves kitties. And ahead, with Drew and Nina, you know, it was just coitus. So, they haven't ever tried a relationship. They might vibe. General Hospital's new villainous super couple Drew and Ava Jerome each right. Next over, let's talk about someone new for Drew, and that would be Ava Jerome. Now that Drew is a real bad boy, a true villain, perhaps he needs a mate who's inversely as devious as him. So why not pair up Ava and Drew as an unlawful super couple? I'll admit Ava has mellowed quite a bit, but she's still one of the OG baddies on General Hospital, and Drew is downright ruthless when he feels that it's justified, and so is Ava. Neither of them have numerous limits on effects they won't do. So, we've seen how low Drew can go, and whenever we suppose Congressman Cutthroat can't do anything worse, he proves us wrong and does. So, he and Ava might be a perfect fit. Plus, just imagine the chaos that a Drew and Ava pairing would beget. Because flashback, also, Nina is Ava's stylish friend, and she might not like it if Drew and Ava got together after everything Drew has done to her son. But also again, just in terms of him as her partner, I don't suppose Nina would watch because she was fine with Ava dating her ex-husband, Rick Lansing. So, she might be like, okay, your problem. Not a good choice, but okay. Sunny would go absolutely nuclear if Ava wound up with Drew, and their guardianship battle over Avery Jerome Corinthos might reignite. Plus, Alexis Davis and Christina Corinthos Davis might go back to abhorring Ava, and their newfound peace would go out the window. Plus, Ava getting with Drew might spark some covetousness in Rick, especially if Drew and Ava were super hot for each other and got all loved up and were doing a lot of PDA. That'd be really adulatory because it would tick off a lot of people and presumably beget massive ripple goods each over Port Charles. The GH plot twist pairing: could Drew pursue Jacinda to pique Michael? Each right, just for fun, let's gamble Jacinda into the blend, the call girl turned particular adjunct. A pairing with her and Drew could make swells. I could see the creepy Solon going after her simply because Michael likes Jacinda. So, it'd be another thing Drew could take from his whoreson if Willow walked down from him for good, which seems absolutely like it's going to be. There's surely a spark there between Jacinda and Michael. And indeed, though they're faking their relationship right now, they're getting near. I see implicit for Jacinda and Michael to have commodity real. So, if Jacinda turned on Michael, especially to get with Drew, Michael would lose it. And Jacinda doesn't want to see the dark side of Michael. And as much as he runs his mouth, Drew has no idea what Michael's really able of. The redemption arc: can Elizabeth Weber reform Drew Kane on General Hospital? And last, but absolutely not least, let's talk about one last partner of Drew's, who also happens to be single and at one point was actually head over heels for him. But that's also because she allowed. He was his binary family, Jason Morgan. I'm talking about Elizabeth Weber, who hasn't had important of a story in such a long time. I mean, when Lucky Spencer came back and they revivified, I was like, oh, okay. Liz is going to get a story. And a lot of the Liz suckers were so agitated, but also Jonathan Jackson turned around and quit the show again. And also they broke Liz and Lucky up, and she just slid into being this appurtenant character. So perhaps GH is going to go the redemption route and clean Drew up. And if so, Elizabeth is the perfect mate for him. Being with her got Franco a lot of acceptance around city and helped reform his image. And he was worse than Drew. I mean, Franco was a legal periodical killer. Perhaps Elizabeth could show Drew some kindness and some sympathy if he demanded some comfort. And also they got to be musketeers again, and also she felt that same spark that Liz had for Drew ahead. Drew's fate, redemption or death? And of course, that was in the Billy Miller days, God rest his soul, and when she allowed. He was Jason. We've no way seen Elizabeth paired with the Cameron Matheson interpretation of Drew romantically, but it might work. I don't know. I suppose suckers will always detest Drew, and they're looking for notoriety to come back and finish the job and put another 2 pellets in him, and also he's done and gone and no love interest necessary. But I don't know if that's ever going to be. Frank Valentini seems to like him. So, if Drew survives all of this, perhaps he'll get into a love with Carly, or Ava, or Nina, or Jacinda, or indeed Elizabeth. I mean, of all these, my plutocrat's kind of on Ava since she's least likely to be judgy. But if they want the redemption bow, it's got to be Elizabeth, right? The silence in Drew Kane's penthouse was a fragile, artificial construct, built on a foundation of desperate hope and willful ignorance. He moved through the minimalist space, a man trying to reassemble the pieces of a life that had shattered the moment a prison gate clanged shut behind him. At the center of this reconstruction project was Willow Tate, or more precisely, the ghost of what they once were. In his mind, her recent, terse conversations were a lifeline, the first tender green shoots of a relationship he was determined to nurse back to health. He clung to the memory of her kiss, a moment of profound weakness he had mistaken for strength, and saw in her strained politeness a door left slightly ajar. He couldn't see that the door was only open for one reason: he held the key to her cage. She just needs time, Drew murmured to his reflection in the polished steel of his espresso machine. The encouraging words were a mantra, a shield against the cold dread that had taken up residence in his gut. She's been through hell. We both have. Once she sees I can fix this, once I help her get the kids back and clear her name, she'll remember who we are. This delusion was the fuel that powered his every move. He was the hero of his own story, the wronged man returning to reclaim his kingdom and his queen. The fact that his kingdom was built on corporate espionage, blackmail, and a scorched earth campaign against his own family was, in his mind, justifiable means to a noble end. The crazy eyes others saw were merely the intense focus of a man on a mission. Across town, in the stark, quiet apartment she now shared with her mother, Willow was drowning in a different kind of silence. It was the silence of a home without children's laughter, without the soft, trusting weight of a child's head on her shoulder. The loss of Wiley and Amelia was a physical amputation, a constant, screaming emptiness that colored every thought, every breath. And she blamed Drew Kane. The blame was not a simple, clean emotion. It was a tangled knot of grief, regret, and a rage so profound it sometimes stole her breath. Their ill-fated kiss, a moment of shared vulnerability in the eye of a hurricane, had been the catalyst. It had given Michael the final, painful excuse he needed to file for sole custody, painting her as an unstable, unfaithful partner. But Willow's logic, sharpened by loss, traced the fault line back further. It led back to Drew's single-minded, immoral war against Nina, a war that had consumed him, changed him, and ultimately left their family caught in the crossfire. He had chosen vengeance over stability, power over family, and in doing so, he had cost her everything. Her conversations with him were not reconciliation, they were reconnaissance. She was a general with no army, probing the enemy's defenses for any weakness, any piece of information or leverage he might possess that could help her claw her way back to her children. She smiled when she wanted to scream, she nodded when she wanted to accuse, and all the while, the angry threat simmered just beneath her calm exterior, a volcano waiting for the right moment to erupt. That moment was hurtling toward them, inevitable as a tidal wave. The end began, as so many things in Port Charles did, at General Hospital. A chance meeting in the hallway outside of Kelly's, a space too public for the private cataclysm about to unfold. Drew, seeing her, lit up with a hope that was painful to witness. "Willow," he said, his voice warm, stepping into her path. "I was just thinking about you. I have a lead, a new lawyer who might be able to." "Drew, stop." Her voice was quiet, but it carried a finality that froze him in place. He blinked, his smile faltering. "Stop? What do you mean? This could be the break we need. We can fight this together." "There is no we, Drew." The words were not shouted, they were delivered with the chilling calm of a verdict. "There hasn't been a we for a long time. There never will be again." The world around them seemed to slow. The chatter from the nurse's station, the squeak of a gurney wheel in the distance, it all faded into a dull hum. Drew's face went through a rapid series of emotions, confusion, denial, and finally, a dawning, ugly comprehension. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "I'm saying it's over." Willow's eyes, once so full of love for him, were now flat and hard as stones. "I am never, ever getting back together with you. I don't want to be with you. I don't even want to be near you." The explosion was not one of sound, but of shattered illusion. Drew's carefully constructed narrative of redemption and reunion collapsed into dust. His jaw tightened, and the intense focus in his eyes sharpened into something darker, more predatory. "You're blaming me?" he hissed, stepping closer, his body radiating a tension that made her instinctively step back. "For what? For fighting for what's mine? For not rolling over when your husband and his family tried to destroy me?" "I'm blaming you for losing my children," she fired back, the calm shattering as the volcano finally erupted. Her voice trembled with the force of her fury. "Your vendetta, your lies, your moral bankruptcy. You became so obsessed with winning, with destroying Nina, that you didn't care who got buried in the rubble. And you buried me, Drew. You buried me and our children. Now Michael has them, and I'm facing prison, and you stand there talking about we?" The angry threats were no longer beneath the surface. They were out in the open, hanging in the sterile hospital air. "I lost them too." Drew roared, his composure finally obliterated. "No, you didn't. Willow screamed, tears of rage and grief finally streaming down her face. You lost a battle in your stupid, pointless war. I lost my reason for breathing. Now, stay away from me. Whatever you think you can do to help, don't. The only thing I want from you is your absence. She turned and walked away, her shoulders straight, leaving him standing alone in the hallway, a monument to his own ruin. The baptism by fire was complete. The encouraging words he had clung to were ash in his mouth, and the only thing left was the echo of her angry threats. It was all over. In the days that followed, Drew Kane licked his wounds in the opulent solitude of his penthouse. The initial shock gave way to a cold, simmering resentment. He was a man of action, of acquisition. He could not abide this void, this rejection. If Willow was lost to him, then he would find a new asset, a new partner, a new prize to prove to the world, and to himself, that he was still a force to be reckoned with. Port Charles, a town teeming with complicated women and tangled histories, offered several potential candidates for his next chapter. The scorching rekindling, Carly Corinthos Spencer. His mind first drifted to Carly. Their history in 2022 had been a supernova of passion and ambition. They had been a power couple, their connection forged in the fires of corporate takeovers and shared enemies. Now, they were both pariahs in their own way, cast out from the inner circle of the family they had once dominated. Drew considered the calculus. Carly currently despised him for his attacks on her son, Michael. But if he were to recalibrate his strategy, if he were to drop his vendetta, might that soften her? He had, after all, gone to prison for her. That had to count for something in the ledger of Carly Spencer's heart. A reunion would be a declaration of war against Sonny, Jason, and Michael, a prospect that held a certain dark appeal. It would be explosive, controversial, and would undoubtedly infuriate everyone who had turned their backs on him. They made a certain, ruthless sense together. But Carly was a force of nature, not a pawn. She would be a partner, not a conquest, and Drew wasn't sure he was willing to share the throne. The spicy, chaotic rebound, Nina Reeves. Then there was Nina. The memory of their brief, intensely physical affair was a flicker of heat in his cold planning. It had been just sex, a temporary alliance of two wounded animals. But the unresolved tension was a live wire. Now, they were both outcasts, vilified by the same people. Aligning with Nina would be the ultimate act of defiance against Willow and Michael. The poetic cruelty of it was almost beautiful. If he couldn't have the daughter, he would take the mother. The chaos would be magnificent. Willow would be utterly destroyed, her hatred for Nina reaching a mythical crescendo. They could be co-conspirators, two villains embracing their roles. And as co-parents to Scout, there was a strange logic. Nina loved children with a ferocity that often bordered on the pathological. But was she too volatile, too deeply entangled in the very drama he was supposedly trying to move past? Or was that precisely the point? The villainous supercouple, Ava Jerome. A new, more tantalizing possibility emerged, Ava Jerome. She was Port Charles royalty when it came to elegant villainy. She had mellowed, yes, but Ava's core was still forged in survival and self-interest. She was pragmatic, cunning, and breathtakingly beautiful. She would understand his ruthlessness because she possessed her own. They would be a power couple of a different sort, not corporate titans, but masters of the shadows. The chaos they could unleash together was intoxicating to consider. Sonny would go nuclear if his ex-wife and current nemesis became a couple, potentially reigniting their brutal custody battle over Avery. It would strain Ava's friendship with Nina and shatter her fragile peace with Alexis and Christina. And the sheer, unadulterated soap opera spectacle of it appealed to the part of Drew that craved attention, even of the negative kind. Ava would not judge his methods, she would likely improve upon them. The calculated spite, Jacinda. For a purely tactical move, there was Jacinda, Michael's captivating new personal assistant. Drew had seen the way his nephew looked at her, a spark of genuine interest amidst the fake relationship. The idea of taking her from Michael, of claiming something he wanted, was a petty but potent revenge. It would be another move in their endless game, a way to prove that Drew could still get under his skin and take what he desired. But Jacinda was an unknown variable, a wild card. She was loyal to Michael, for now, but everyone had a price. Drew was rich, powerful, and persuasive. It would be a risky gamble, but the payoff, the look on Michael's face, might be worth it. The redemption arc, Elizabeth Weber. And then, there was the path of least resistance, and perhaps, greatest public relations benefit, Elizabeth Weber. Sweet, kind, long-suffering Liz. She had once been head over heels for him, though that was the him she believed was Jason Morgan. She was the town's designated nurturer, the woman who had tamed a serial killer. If anyone could sand down his rough edges and repackage him as a redeemed hero, it was Elizabeth. Being with her had given Franco a level of acceptance he'd never known. Drew could see the appeal. A quiet life, community respect, a gentle partner who would offer sympathy instead of confrontation. He could play the repentant man, seeking solace in a good woman's arms. The fans who now hated him might slowly come to tolerate him. But the thought made him restless. It felt like surrender, like being put out to pasture. Was he ready to be fixed? Or did he relish the sharp, dangerous man he had become? Days turned into a week. Drew, having licked his wounds, made his decision. He wouldn't pursue a relationship out of loneliness or a desperate need for redemption. He would choose a partner who amplified his power, who embraced the man he was now, not the man he used to be. He found himself at the door of the Jerome Gallery. Inside, Ava was overseeing the hanging of a new, provocative piece, her critics missing nothing. Drew, she said, not turning around, as if she had sensed his presence. To what do I owe the pleasure? Here to strong-arm me into selling my shares of something? I'm here to propose a merger, Ava, he said, his voice smooth and confident as he stepped into the gallery. Not of companies. Of interests. She finally turned, a slow, elegant pivot, her eyes narrowing with intrigued suspicion. Is that so? We're both playing a high-stakes game against powerful opponents, Drew continued, his gaze sweeping over the art before landing back on her. We're both misunderstood. Perhaps we'd have a better chance of winning if we stopped playing alone. A slow, knowing smile touched Ava's perfectly painted lips. She understood him perfectly. This was not a proposal of love, but of alliance. A partnership of two beautiful, dangerous predators. A merger, she repeated, walking toward him, her heels clicking on the polished concrete. It's a compelling proposition. It would certainly make things more interesting. As they stood there, two forces of nature acknowledging their mutual potential for destruction and glory, the rest of Port Charles remained oblivious to the new threat taking shape. Willow, in her lonely apartment, finally felt a sliver of peace, having purged the poison of Drew from her life. She had no idea that her final, angry words had not ended his story, but had simply prompted him to turn the page, ready to write a new, and likely more terrifying, chapter with a co-author who was his equal in every way. The fallout from their end was only just beginning.